I'm not going to go through the comments again, but man, some of you guys are freaking nuts.
It's true.
Like, dude, people just going at us about certain stuff. Like, we don't know what we're talking about. Notre Dame's better. And as I explained it before, I'll say it one more time. Like, if both Matt, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Guys.
So, like, Matt, we're just talking about comments that I've been getting, but yeah, like for example, like if Bowling Green beat us or Minnesota beat us, I wouldn't say like, oh yeah, Minnesota's clearly the better team just because they won. Like, that's not true. Even if we beat Ohio State, maybe if we beat Ohio State, be a little different. But Notre Dame fans just saying that we're better clearly and we beat you guys head to head, and it's like, it doesn't mean you're better than us. I mean,
Northern Illinois is better than Notre Dame.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it's a circle
so,
jerk argument.
Yeah, so like at the end of the day, man, like to me, we had the most talent. We had the most talented team in the country last year. We probably will next year too. We'll see. We'll have to look at the rosters, but like Notre Dame, okay, here's the thing. You guys want to say you're the better team, okay? Riley Leonard at quarterback, who's better, him or Drew Aller? Drew Aller. Running back, who's better, Jeremiah Love or Nick Singleton and Katron Allen? Well, we got that. Tight end, we're better. O-line, we're probably better. D-line, we're probably better. Linebacker, who do you have at linebacker?
Situational football, though, right?
It's not even close, man. So, you know, it's like, and people, dude, it's always the people. I mean, I had a guy, he said, I had a guy comment, he said, dude, your beard sucks. You can't grow a beard. He said, you have a double chin. And like talking all this crap. And he's got a picture of him and like what was it? He's got a picture of him like kissing his daughter. I'm like, dude, you guys talk crap on these social media platforms. You got pictures of your kids like on your social media. I'm like, you're a moron. Like, I don't get that. It's always those guys. Brett, you know this. Like, we talked about it. It's always guys talking the most crap. Then they have a picture of like them and their daughter. It's like, what are you doing, man? Like, why are you talking crap with a picture of your kid on the social media?
Internet's a weird place, Mark.
Oh yeah, but we got a lot of haters on here. Keep it coming, baby. Keep it coming. We're gonna put you to bed just like we do everybody else. You guys have no idea what you're talking about. When you start a podcast, you really have to know your crap, because if you don't, someone's gonna call that out real quick. Therefore, I don't have anybody on here that doesn't know their crap. Brett, Matt, Anthony Howard, Jared, whoever. And to a greater point, I've said this before too. Like Landon Tangwall, he's a former player. He has a big audience now. Justin King has a big audience.
Yeah.
I'm not a former player. I'm not even in media like Tom Hannafin or T. Frank or any of those guys. All I can do is be myself and know what I'm talking about, be genuine. And that's how I'm going to build this podcast. So I'm not going to start out with 3,000 followers right away like Landon Tangwall did. And all the credit goes to him. But I'm not a former player, man. No one knows who I am.
Yeah.
So all I can do is be myself. And that's how I'm going to build this channel. And it is building. Started with 0 followers. Now we're over 500, pushing for 1,000. So, you know, that's just how it works. So
we all start at one. We all start at one. It takes a couple seasons. And listen, I mean, when you're winning, there's going to be more people seeking this content. Like, I know on my page, like, listen, like, engagement was up big time this year because, listen, people want winners. They want to follow winners. And you see the same thing with the NIL, right? Like, all those fringe fans who are thinking about supporting, and you make the playoffs. You see Tyler Warren on SportsCenter, right? You see Nick Singleton. You see us, you know, in a, you know, in 3 playoff games, and people want to get involved, and that's where we are. You know, Mark, your point on Notre Dame, listen, I think from a talent standpoint, all those areas, you're right. But listen, we struggled with situational football, right? Like interception at a bad time. Like I don't think it was a great pass by Allard to Singleton. But
well, here's the thing: Drew Aller did not lose us the game, but he blew it at the end. That's all we were saying on post game. He blew it. Like he made a stupid mistake. That's quarterback 101, man. You don't throw back across the middle like that.
The receivers didn't help him. That's what it is.
No.
He
had no receivers. I mean,
you know what? To be fair, I went back and watched a cut up of that play, and basically Evans was the fourth option, and he did not run that route good at all. He was pretty lazy coming out of the break.
Yeah.
And I think it was Landon Tangwell. To your point, I was listening to his analysis, and he showed the full 22 cut up, and I agree with him 100%. Like those receivers do that sometimes, right? Exactly like he said, like, hey, I'm the fourth option. I'm just clearing this out. And then at the most important time, it's just that situational football, right? Like, are you prepared? You're playing 60 minutes. Every play counts. You take one play off. And he did, no matter who that is, right? The left tackle misses a block. Running back doesn't pick up a blitz coverage. You get to that point in the season when you're playing Notre Dame or whoever in a tight game, one missed assignment in football can blow up the whole thing. And that's what happened. He ran a lazy route.
Yep.
And that's a bad, lazy play at the bad time. It's going to be, it's just going to be compounded.
And like you said, that play to Singleton and the flat that in the goal line set, he throws it to Singleton. It's a little short behind. It hits his hands. That one play, that changes the whole game. We probably win. That's
Notre Dame has to go even more aggressively. They can't stay if they wanted to. I don't think there's any question we have more NFL players, but at the end of the day, you got to execute in those critical situations. And we all this is my one concern for next year, right? Is that, Tyler Warren made a lot of those, hey, everything broke down. We could just throw him the ball. He was the bailout guy, right? And who's going to be the bailout guy next year, right? When those plays break down, we're going to need a lot from both of these transfers.
Yeah.
And we're still going to need one more. And Luke Reynolds will do a good job replacing a lot of the production that Warren put forth. But that, to me, is the biggest question mark going into the offseason and going into the next portal window is the receiver position. It's a lot of production.
So, exactly. I agree with you, Matt. I just want to say this, like Mike McQuarrie, the same guy that Pat McAfee talks about on his show all the time. I knew Mike McQuarrie. He was one of my coaches at Penn State camp. I really liked him a lot. One of my favorite coaches I've ever had in sports. But here's the thing. He told me personally, you guys remember Graham Zug, Matt? I know you do.
Number 5. Brett, he was a good player.
Brett, you remember Graham Zug, right?
Yeah.
All right. So he told me, as a walk-on, the reason he was so good and the reason he played a lot, which he did, because he was good at route running. He said he was the best route runner on the team. And he played with Justin Brown, Derek Moy, Derek Williams, Deion Butler. The reason he played a lot was because he was good at route running. We don't have that. So and I played receiver too. I played receiver, and what I learned at Penn State football camp from Mike McQuarrie, I took back to my team, and we did the drills that we did in football camp, and that was all footwork and route running. That's all we did, man.
Yeah.
That's all we did. We focused on route running. That's the most important aspect. You can be the fastest guy in the world. You can have the best hands in the world, but if you can't run routes, then you're being lazy.
That's Amari Evans. That's what you just explained.
You're being lazy and you're being an asshole, to be honest with you. I don't mean to curse, but don't be lazy with your routes. And they did that, man. It sucks, but So, yeah, obviously it's a concern going into next year. It's been a concern. People criticize Franklin because he's a receiver coach in the NFL. People criticize Franklin because they haven't developed. The receiver coach, I don't think, has had enough time to do that. I mean, last year clearly could have gotten better, but, man, our receivers have been bad, and it sucks. Now, I don't think, to me, it's not an excuse because we have great tight ends and we have great running backs. So we still should have won that game. Now, will we have beaten Ohio State? I don't know. But, yeah, it's just.
Do we win if Lambert Smith doesn't go and transfer?
Probably.
Who?
Lambert Smith.
I mean, if Lambert Smith's on the team, are we playing the national championship game?
He had a good year.
Brett said something about having Jahan Dotson. If we had like a Jahan Dotson on the team, we probably
I'm not even going to Jahan Dotson's level, right? I'm just talking about a guy that gets us.
Parker Washington, even.
But Notre Dame fans were like, "What's that have to do with anything?" It's like, we would have had a receiver that ran routes and would have been good. He's on the Eagles, man. He's playing in the damn Super Bowl right now.
They had Greathouse. Greathouse put over 100 yards on us. I mean, one was the busted play, but he also did that to Ohio State too. They had that one guy who could take the top off when they needed him, and we didn't have him. The biggest question mark, like you're talking about for next year, we need Tyseer Denmark to step up. He was a true freshman last year. He's very quick, short area quickness. He's a very good route runner for his age. Like, I've seen him run routes. He looks very clean. Can he take the next step? Last year, he was just learning college and, learning how to be a college football player and putting some weight on. So I think he'll make a push for a starting role. I mean, we'll wait and see, but that's going to be my early prediction. I think Tyseer Denmark's going to play next year.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Drew Aller's definitely working with the receivers. That's one thing that they probably did as soon as they got home from the playoff game. But just to answer some questions here from Jason D'Angelo. I thought it said DeRollo for a second. I can't believe Jim left us. Wish him well until November 1st. Yep, that's when we play. Buckeyes outlet reported they don't see players following him. Caleb Downs thanked Coach Jim. He also added that the other coaches have experience too. There was a lot that happened with him clearly, and that's why he left. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Get Hines Ward to coach him. I agree. Yes, with Lambert Smith, he was solid versus my Buckeyes. Here's the thing, man. Hines Ward is with Arizona State. I saw him on TV during the playoff game. Dotson made plays versus us too. Exactly. Hines Ward would be a good one. But here's the thing, man. Like, we had so much talent last year, and then there was receivers. Now, when Saquon played and McSorley was the quarterback, the O-line was an issue. It's like, when is this bullshit gonna stop? Like, I'm sick of it.
It's always something. Yeah.
I know. I hate because I'm not an excuses guy, man, especially when it comes to Penn State, the Steelers. We're too good to make excuses. So when is this shit gonna be ironed out?
You know how hard it is to develop a complete team in college football with how long those guys are there for, how many years it takes for even 4 or 5-star offensive linemen to get on the field, like 2 years in the weight program, right? It's tough, man, to line it up. And that's why losing a month ago, the way they did was a big kick in the groin because you don't get so many positions to line up correctly, right? You're always going to have a flaw at one level of the team. It's nearly impossible in college football to have it at receiver. Like, we were just, hey, listen, we had the guy, right? Like, if Lambert Smith stays and Fleming stays at Ohio State, we're playing in the national championship game. It was right there. We just needed, again, some modest upgrade at receiver to change the projection of the team. And, considering how far we have been in the NIL front behind financially, they got every last.
So you think we're behind still?
No. I think this reminds me a lot, guys.
You said before we're not, and I agree in many ways.
I don't
we're
think
behind for Penn State.
I don't think we are now because I think momentum means so much in college football. And I point to the Clemson example, right? So, right before the year they made it to the college football playoffs, there was this term called Clemsoning, right? And you had Charlie Whitehurst, and you had Taj Boyd, and you had all those Clemson quarterbacks and those Clemson teams that would keep lose to Florida State. We get upset by NC State. As soon as they made the playoffs with Deshaun Watson and they hit that next level, and then they won the national championship, right? Now you're starting to land a guy called Trevor Lawrence, right? And who would have thought 3 years ago, before Trevor Lawrence committed to Clemson, that a player like Trevor Lawrence would commit to a team that just Clemson's each year. So I think Penn State, if you look at the momentum with the stadium, the $3 million they paid to Jim Knowles, the amount of guys they retained, probably some through the additional NIL funding, the amount of high-level boosters they have engaged. I mean, listen, I grew up, I'll give you an example. Like, enthusiasm is at an all-time high. I live over in Jersey. I grew up here my whole life. I lived in Hawaii for a number of years, came back. I never saw as many Penn State bumper stickers this fall on my, like, just driving around New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. Like, I'm driving out to the games, and on Route 80, they have a Penn State football billboard that I've ever seen. Like, enthusiasm's real. And when they say, like, hey, Penn State is like kind of this pseudo sleeping giant, it's not really made. It's not like a pipe dream. They have the largest alumni base in the world. There's 110,000 fans there, right? And it's coming together, and it's not going to stop because people want winners, right? Soon as you win, people will start buying tickets. They'll buy parking passes. They'll show up at bowl games. It doesn't stop. And they have probably the most momentum of any team in college football when you look at the totality of the program than anyone else going into next year. And I'm telling you right now, you mark my words, they are going to land a minimum. And I can tell you very well with very good confidence, they're going to land a minimum of 2 all-conference caliber players in the transfer portal in the spring. At a minimum. This roster is going to be even better. The offseason is not over. Like, that Jim Knowles signing is just a preview of what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Not be surprised if they pull in 3 first or second team all-conference level players this spring transfer portal window. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. Jason said, play Caden Saunders. He's an elite receiver from Ohio.
He's not.
If Kalen is, yeah, I agree. If Caden is healthy, he should get more opportunities. He was wide receiver 3, also scored on us. Okay, so here's the thing, man.
He got a garbage.
I don't think Caden was a 4-star receiver, but he's definitely not elite. He could be if he wants to, but here's the thing, man.
Healthy, we would know more, and he could have gotten reps last year. But like that backtracked him being injured, so like now we don't know what we're going to see with him. So wait and see. He could be good. But...
Like Mike Krestovich, who has his own podcast we had on here. He actually had Bo Nickel on his podcast, Straight from the Krez, right after he was on Joe Rogan, golfing with Trump and stuff. He said that if you have Liam Clifford on the field who wouldn't even see the field at Ohio State, then you got a problem, which I agree with. And, you know, you Penn State fans, like, Clifford is just, that name haunts me. That'd be like having Anthony Morelli's brother play receiver. It's like, we need to get this cursed name off the roster. No offense to Liam Clifford, but Clifford is just like Sean. I mean, he just gave me nightmares, but we need to be better at receiver for sure. And here's the thing. Guys are coming back, okay? They have their sights set on a title. Abdul Carter left because he's so good. Denai's the same year. Singleton's the same year. Catron's the same year. Drew's the same year. Caden Saunders is the same year. They could have all left if they wanted to, honestly, and they didn't. So they got that. The NIL is clearly making moves because they just hired Jim Knowles. He's the highest paid coordinator in college football. And he makes like $1 million less than NFL coordinators. So they're making moves. They got their sights. The players have their sights set. NIL seems to be working. They just made a huge hire. They're going to add to the roster, like Matt said. And here's the thing, man. Like I've said it before, say it again. James Franklin is a player's coach. He's awesome. in that sense. He is a player's coach. I don't think he gets enough credit for his football IQ, which he is pretty damn high. And Franklin carries himself well. I mean, I don't think any of you can name a time where the way he conducts himself, the way he walks, the way he walks with his chest out, man, like he carries himself very well. I think he's a good representation of a Penn State football coach. He's a player's coach. We got the players back. We got a good roster coming back. We're going to get more people. We got that kid from freaking Texas A&M. We got the receivers.
But I don't know with the receivers, right? So, like, I would feel a lot better if Harrison Wallace came back.
Yeah.
I feel we're set. But I feel like we're in the same position we were the past 2 years. Okay guys, but you still need that third because there's still unknowns, right? You still got a kid from Troy, and we got a kid from Penn State right a couple years ago. He wasn't able to make the transition. Cephas. You got a good kid from USC, but I mean, look at his stats, man. Like, and their quarterback wasn't bad at all, right? Like their quarterback wasn't that bad, but Hudson didn't put up. Like, I'm not like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not overly excited. I don't know how much better we got, or did we just maintain addition by subtraction?
Yeah, like we were talented last year. We're talented again. That's the whole thing about that.
Well, the thing with Hudson too was that Miller Moss started the year pretty good, but then they made the transition and switched quarterbacks. Also, they had a loaded receiver room. If Hudson was already on our team and he put up 300 some yards, then I wouldn't be impressed at all. But he was in the mix with like 6 different receivers over there, like a solid. Like, we've never had a solid receiving corps. So him as a starter and his stats as a contested catch ratio, he goes up and gets the ball, which none of our receivers did ever last year. They waited for it to come to them, or they didn't catch it. They didn't go up and grab it. So, yeah, I still agree that we need to see more, but you're basically getting a Harrison Wallace. So, in a way, like, he's similar to a Harrison Wallace, probably not as fast, but more of a contested catch guy, same size, physical receiver off the line. They're going to get at least one more receiver in the spring. They have to.
They're going to get 2. I'm telling you right now, they are going to be minimum of 2 that are rolling in, because not only is that room with a lot of question marks, still going back to tight ends. You had 100 catches by Tyler Warren. How are you getting to 100 catches just to get back to what you were last year, which wasn't good enough to win the national championship? The greatest tight end in the history of Penn State. So Luke Reynolds maybe give you 40, 45. Dinkins will give you 20, 25. You're still going to need 40, 50 catches somewhere.
Yeah.
Or that's going to be the downfall, right, of this team. This team's season is going to make or break when that transfer portal window opens in the spring. Can they land 1, if not 2, all conference type receivers? And if they can't, they're going to have to win in a way that we haven't seen teams win national championships. Not that they couldn't, but we're going to have to see them win in a way that we just haven't seen in a long period of time, since probably Ohio State beat Miami, right? Like, that was probably the last team. Yeah. And they still had Michael Jenkins on the outside, who is very timely, right, with some of his big plays, but they didn't, like, they weren't a very pass happy team. They didn't feel good about being down by 7 points.
Yeah.
That's probably the last team to do it that way.
So, and the good news about the receiver thing, real quick though, is like we've talked about before, 2025 guys and 2026 guys, they're changing the room of the receivers, like the type of receivers they're getting. They're getting bigger guys. They're getting more physical bodies. They're getting very quick guys too.
We don't need them in 26, bro. We need them now.
No, we need them now. We need. Yep.
Yeah. Like, to me, that could switch, could die.
Yep. Guilford from Indiana, he looks really good, and then Jasir Rogers from Delaware, he looks really good. So, like, those are going to be difference makers once they come in.
Because Penn State soon, man, and it always works out that way somehow. We didn't have tight ends. Well, we've always had tight ends, but we didn't have like elite tight ends like we have now. We have, and the one kid just bumped into a 5-star spot. Eventually, we're probably going to get like a Jeremiah Smith type guy at Penn State, and then he's going to be like a first-round pick. But here's the thing, just a general point. Franklin is a strong recruiter, and I've been talking to a lot of people. I've actually been taking notes and stuff. Franklin's a strong recruiter, even without all the money that some other programs do. But he has the most talented team. Like, the guy doesn't have as much money as other schools, but he still has the most talented team in the country. And that's a hill I'm gonna die on, which is crazy because that just says a lot about his recruiting ability. Ohio State is talented, but they're not as talented as us. But they had more money, but they were a better team due to like their coaching. If we beat Ohio State, like I still think they're the better team overall, but we're more talented. We're the most talented team in the country. I mean, they got us at like receiver, maybe linebacker. I don't think they had us in the secondary. And for those of you who actually go to games, and I was at the UCLA game this year, our defensive backs are freaking unreal, man. Like, they're big, they're fast, they got muscle on them, they can hit, they can tackle. I mean, our defensive backs are unreal. Like, we're getting AJ Harris back.
Our best one all year. Like, I mean,
yeah, exactly. KJ Winston was out. Jalen Reed should have stayed. Jalen Kimber should have stayed. But anyway, AJ Harris is back. Sakee Wheatley is back. I mean, King Mack is back.
It's crazy. I mean, King Mack, okay, like depth. I mean, he wasn't seeing the field much at Alabama. They were in disarray there. Elliott Washington, I like a lot.
Yeah.
But again, it's these one or two extra players that they've been away. So like Jaden Kimber, like, to me, Mark, like, Ohio State is more talented at those critical positions, right? Free safety, Caleb Downs, and we're missing, obviously, KJ Winston all year. Number one receiver, right? Jeremiah Smith. Just could play breaks down, he's just getting open. He's just like an eraser, right? The defensive ends, with Sawyer and JT, they're just more experienced, than our defensive ends, right? And then quarterback Will Howard did a better job this year protecting the ball and performed better in the playoffs, right? So your quarterback, your safety, your number one receiver, your defensive end, and then even number one corner. I mean, Denzel Burke.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, if you put Will Howard on Penn State's roster, he's not doing much with it. He's not. He's throwing it to Tyler Warren too.
He didn't turn the ball over.
I mean, it's going to be the same thing, huh?
Right? I think he was their biggest liability. I think if we made the national championship game, he was a guy that we would have to have probably have blitzed heavy and try to force his hand, but he didn't turn the ball over.
No,
right.
He had Jeremiah Smith, like you were saying.
Yeah,
we don't. Yeah, I mean,
but he didn't even do. But Jeremiah Smith didn't even do much for Texas, right? I mean, Texas basically doubled him up, and up until really, I mean, give Notre Dame credit. I mean, up until that last bomb, he wasn't unstoppable.
No,
right?
No,
he wasn't like mossing anyone, and even versus us, he didn't do much versus us.
No.
I mean, he had one crossing pattern on the third down, and that was pretty much it. I'm not taking anything away from him, but
he's just a freak athlete. Like, that doesn't, But for example, like Caleb Downs, free safety. I played free safety. You're the last resort. The reason you're free is because you're in the back. Strong safety is a little different. You move around. I believe John Lynch, for example, was a strong safety. He was a free safety, but John Lynch, for those of you who know who I'm talking about, he was a free safety, but he moved like a strong safety. Like Caleb Downs does both. Sakee Wheatley does both. Kevin Winston does both.
They played Caleb Downs all over the field. Yeah, they played him everywhere. They played him 8 yards off the ball.
But Sakee Wheatley's a freak, man. He's going to be, if not AJ Harris, he's going to be our best guy next year.
He had a very good year.
Just overall points, like, like you make about Jeremiah Smith, and in big games this year, like in the playoff, he wasn't really there. But he's so good, you have to shut him down. But like the fact that these players are coming back, James Franklin is a players coach. They just hired Jim Knowles. Now, for example, like the Bengals, they made the Super Bowl. The next year, I believe they did it. They almost made the Super Bowl. They lost with a terrible call in the AFC title game to the Chiefs, of course. And then you got the fact that we just made the semifinal. We need to stay healthy, but our chances, man, of going to a national title next year and winning it are very high because we were so close this year. That's usually a good representation. Good teams usually repeat that. So like the Steelers in 2004, Big Ben went 15-1. He started a game in like week 3 and didn't lose until the AFC title game. I mean, that's the best rookie. He had the best rookie season of all time. I bring that up because in 2004, they lost to the Patriots at home to go to the Super Bowl. The next year, they won the Super Bowl. Now, the last time the Penn State lost in a heartbreaker with John Schaefer as the quarterback was in 85. And then in 86, they won the national title. They lost to the Boz in 86. And then in 87, they won the national title. So I believe, if I'm thinking of it right, they went to 2 straight national titles. They lost one and then they won one. So we're kind of in the same position right now. And the whole thing with NIL and everything, like people keep talking about how shitty NIL is, which it kind of is. It's a freaking circus, but you navigate that by having a player's coach, one, which Franklin is, and also being a developer, which Franklin is as well. His resume speaks for itself. So that's how you navigate NIL. So the NIL thing and the portal and all that, we have the perfect coach for that. That's how you navigate the portal and NIL, all this money and all this BS. Degrees don't mean anything anymore to a lot of these players, unfortunately. They do to the coaches, and they enforce that, but they're just trying to get the bag. Franklin is the guy for that. That's how you navigate all this. So why the receiver room doesn't get ironed out, I don't get it at all. What's the answer to this whole thing? Like, why is receiver such an issue?
I mean, I'll take issue to the one thing. Like, the biggest threat we have next year is the 16-game season. And what happens with 16 games is injuries. We got very lucky, guys, this year with injuries, all things considered, right? Like, we lost KJ Winston, which hurt. We lost Anthony Donka. Luckily, Donka was able to be replaced, and we were fortunate we really had 3 starting safeties. We may not have the same depth next year, and 16 games is a lot of games to play. And that's my biggest concern going into next year outside the receiver room. How do we navigate the health of a team over 16 games? That's a lot.
It's basically the NFL now, man. Like, you used to play maybe 13 games. Then it was 15. Now it's 16, 13, 15, 16. Like, that's an NFL season, man. And to me, college is harder because you have to go to class. You have to, do projects, do presentations. Penn State campus is uphill both ways. It's like 10 miles long. College is hard, man.
That's my biggest concern.
So, again, we got to stay healthy, man. Like, we got to stay healthy. But it's like, and here's the thing too, man. If I bring up the facts about defensive backs, like Julian Peterson. Like, if you're a defensive back recruit, man, especially after hiring Jim Knowles, and you don't come to Penn State, like, you're freaking crazy. Our defensive backs this year, that's some of the best I've seen ever. And that goes back to like the 08 season, 05 season, when we had Anthony Scarrato and Samitis and Mark Rubin and Justin King and all those guys, AJ Wallace, Knowledge Timmons, all those guys, Lydell Sargent. Those guys were big, fast. They could tackle. Kirk Herbstreit would call us a slow Big Ten team because he's a moron. But they were always. That's one of the best defensive back rooms I've ever seen. So after Jim Knowles, man, and he's got some vengeance. Like he was wearing an Ohio State sucks hat. He's got some vengeance.
I don't know if that was real or not. I saw it.
I don't know, man. I thought it was, but maybe not. But it doesn't matter. Like it I put it as the thumbnail because Ohio State sucks. But and here's another thing too, Matt. Like, I don't feel like the real best team won this year. There should be no buys in the bracket. They need to reseed it every week. The no bye team won, dude. Oregon, they played an Oregon team who came off a bye. Like, Oregon was the best team. They should have been the national title playing whoever. But I don't feel that Ohio State was the best team. Like, I didn't feel like the best team won.
I don't know, man. Like, listen, at the end of the day, they had the toughest path, right? They probably played they played at least 4 very talented teams, right? Tennessee at least was a talented team in the first round. Oregon, Big Ten champ, and they didn't just beat Oregon, like they embarrassed Oregon, right? Tennessee, they embarrassed Tennessee. Texas, that was Sark being Sark. And then they were fortunate that they played Notre Dame and not us in the championship game. Not to say we would have won, but we're really the only team in college football over the past 5 years outside of Alabama who's beaten Ohio State in a number of big games. But we're the only team really, if you look at the past 8 years, no one has played Ohio State tougher than us consistently.
Yeah.
And so
we've lost by a combined 20 points in like the past 10 years.
I mean, they didn't listen. They were happy Notre Dame won, right? They didn't want to mess with us. Not that they felt they couldn't probably still beat us, right? But I would be rooting for Notre Dame as well. I mean, Notre Dame really never had a chance in that game after the second quarter, as we really expected.
Notre Dame is always going to be Notre Dame. Notre Dame they're prima donnas. They've always been that way. They won the national title in '88. They've won one more recently than us in '86. But dude, it's you gotta be realistic, and like Notre Dame fans just aren't. But like they have a good coach. I said before that they need to put more money.
Do they have a good coach? Like
I think they do. Yeah.
Do you think you don't want to give him a couple more years and see how things play out?
So far, he's done a good job. I can agree with that. I mean, yeah.
He's done a good job. I just think we're really quick to say, okay, this guy's like a really good coach.
That's pretty quick. You're right. Yeah. I think one thing I'll say here, though, about
I think he's got a lot of potential.
Penn State in 2025, I can definitely agree we're going to be more talented than Ohio State. They're losing a lot. If we lose to Ohio State next year, I'll be more heartbroken than ever, just because, I mean, we're going to their house. They're going to have a new QB starting, 5-star, but still a new QB. 8 players on their defense are leaving because they ran out of eligibility or they're going to the NFL. They'll still have good receivers, obviously, but they're losing both their running backs, right? So,
well, here's the thing, man. Like 2005, okay, we started out against South Florida, barely beat them. I think we won like 21-15 or something. And then 2008, they came out and beat the living piss out of Coastal Carolina. They beat them 69-10, I think. You knew that they were elite. You knew that was an elite team, that they were going to compete that year for a national title. You knew that right away. All right, 99, they beat the living piss out of Arizona at home. Even 97. Like, when you have an elite team. This year we didn't have that. I unfortunately kind of knew that against West Virginia. I didn't really want to admit it. But we didn't have an elite team next year. So if we come out against Nevada and beat the living crap out of them, and then we beat Oregon or Ohio State, like, we know we're in good shape. We got a good chance against Oregon. Dylan Gabriel's not coming back, I don't think. So, we're going to learn a lot. Now, if we lose to Ohio State in the regular season, it's going to suck, but I don't think that means we're not going to win the national title. It's like the Steelers and Patriots, man. We could never beat the Patriots. In the 2 Super Bowls we won in 2005 and 2008, we didn't play the Patriots in the playoffs. They got beat by another team who we went on to beat. Unfortunately, like, I think that, in 2008, the Jets beat the Patriots and the Colts. We played the Jets. We beat them. 2005, the Broncos beat the Patriots. We went on to play the Broncos and beat them. So it's kind of like a Patriots type of thing with the Steelers where we can't beat Ohio State, man. Now, I think next year we got a good shot. Jim Knowles is a huge key to this team now. I think he's like having Urban Meyer. Like Urban Meyer, like that guy's invincible to me. Like I would never bet against him. He's kind of like that. He gives us that little edge that we need to beat these good teams. So,
well, Kotelnicki in year 2 is very important to have a good coordinator come back for a second year with Drew and the boys. If Kotelnicki was leaving, it would mess everything up. So him coming back for year 2 in a system would be good.
How far are we gonna dip into the bag of tricks though this year without Tyler Warren? If they don't deliver in the portal for another receiver,
well, he might do
we got so many good tight ends. Like
he might replicate it with Luke Reynolds, man. Luke Reynolds is
Luke Reynolds is a freak. We got Khalil Dinkins coming back, I think. Khalil Dinkins is coming back, right?
Khalil Dinkins is a very good blocker.
We got Andrew Rappelier. We got all these guys coming in. Rappelier is probably going to get time next year. I can't keep track of all the great tight ends we have. But we got
100 catches. That's still 100 catches.
No, yeah, you can't. But if you can get more out of the receivers this year, we'll just have to wait and see if we can get. That's going to be their goal. Can we get more out of the receivers so we don't have to go in one spot in the passing game? They're going to try to. Yeah, this is the thing. I believe I agree with Landon Tangwell. He was saying, if you think about it, early in the season, other than West Virginia, Penn State wasn't really. They were game planning the whole season around Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, and Tyler Warren. So if you switch the game plan up a little bit, which now you're going to have to because you don't have Tyler Warren, like you were saying, Kotelnicki is going to have to scheme it up differently a little bit, and I think that's going to open things up. It's going to have to work. He's going to have to make it work.
You can't and will not replace Tyler Warren, but I think we're okay at tight end for sure. Like, again, like I can't keep track of all the tight ends we have. We have so many good ones. We're the best tight end room in the country, but
Andrew Olaf, he's a 5-star now. He's a true freshman. He's already with the team. Yeah,
and speaking of the development, like Warren was a 3-star guy. Like we barely even heard of the guy before this year he just totally broke out, which I don't think anybody saw coming. We knew he was good, but I mean Bretton Strange should have done that last year too, and he didn't. Even freaking Pat Freiermuth, he never had a season like Tyler Warren did, and he was damn near a first-round pick. So the Steelers got him in the second round, I believe. But before we get into Knowles totally, we have Drew Aller, and at any level, high school, college, NFL, when your starter goes down, like we saw it with Tua, we saw it with Deshaun Watson, like when your starter goes down, man, your chances of winning go way down. So the QB, I'd say, is the most important position. And then we haven't had a QB like Aller really ever. Maybe you could throw Hackenberg in there, but he came at a bad time. But they seem not to develop these quarterbacks, and it's a weak spot at Penn State, and they need to make the most out of Aller. Like Sean Clifford, man, he was a highly touted recruit, and he was Anthony Morelli-esque. Here's another thing. Why don't we develop these? Like, what's up with Drew Aller, man? The kid doesn't have confidence. Like, and I feel bad for him because after he threw that interception, I showed him on the bench. He's like, why do I always make this mistake? Well,
that was different. That was to go to a natty. He has confidence. I mean, he'll stiff arm a guy and talk his shit to him and like.
Well, yeah, I don't mean it like that. I just mean like the nuts and guts. I said it before, the nuts and guts. Like, Matt, do you know what I mean by nuts and guts?
Yeah, and I know
Does Drew Aller have that.
I mean, listen, Aller, when you look at that game versus Notre Dame, he got 2 interceptions called back. He missed Singleton in the flat, and obviously, even though the receiver did not run the route properly, and the coaches, when they do the all-22 cut up, they would blame it on Evans and not him, it still goes on the quarterback because he threw the ball right, wrong, or indiffer. So, listen, to the conscientious observer watching that game, right? And a lot of fans don't turn on to the playoffs. They'll say, hey, listen, that was his worst game of the year. Yeah. And like Notre Dame's a good defense, but listen, he expects more from himself, and he's going to have to put a lot more on himself next year, to do it. And I would push back a little bit on Clifford. I mean, Clifford was a 4-star quarterback. He hurt his shoulder late in his high school career. He exceeded what you would probably get out of most 4-star quarterbacks. He's still collecting a paycheck in the NFL. McSorley's collecting a paycheck in the NFL. Michael Robinson collected a paycheck in the NFL. Darrell Clark, they did a good job developing. Even looking at Matt McGloin, he was like a negative star, right?
I mean under Franklin. I don't mean his.
Yeah, I mean, listen, under Franklin. So let's see. I mean, Hackenberg was square peg round hole. Wasn't really his, right? They developed McSorley. He's in the NFL. After McSorley, Clifford, he's in the NFL, and now Aller, he's going to go in the NFL. So, how many teams have past 3 starting quarterbacks gone to the NFL? Right? They're not C.J. Stroud, but that's not a bad run to have your last 3 quarterbacks. Even Will Levis, right? Will Levis, he's in the NFL. Those are 4 quarterbacks who you recruited, came through your program, who have started games, have all played in the NFL. So none are Kerry Collins, but enough to compete, maybe not win, but compete for a national championship.
I mean, here's the thing about Kerry Collins too. Like, I don't think he was a very highly touted recruit. And Joe certainly developed him. He's probably the best quarterback we've ever had. But I don't think that we truly like Aller has improved. Franklin has progressed. I'll say progressed, not improved. Aller's progressed. James Franklin has progressed. But it just seems like Aller, man, he just like I said before, when he drops back, like Anthony Morelli dropped back, you're like, oh God, what's going to happen? McQuarrie dropped back, you're like, oh God. I mean, he had some bad passes, McQuarrie, like they weren't even close. When Aller drops back, man, I'm like, oh shit, like what's going to happen?
Morelli Morelli played with a certain style of wide receiver, right? You had Derek Williams, you had Deion Butler, and you had Jordan Norwood, right? You didn't have a guy who necessarily went up and got the ball and erased necessarily a lot of mistakes. Plus, Morelli was a lot less mobile than Aller was. And he
was the number 1 QB in his class too, from Pittsburgh,
Yeah, no, he was very highly touted out of Penn Hills. Remember, people, I mean, he committed to Pittsburgh actually originally, then decommitted, and then came over. And again, I give Morelli credit because, I mean, listen, he committed to us after we were 4-7, right? So 3-8 and then 4-7. So I give him some credit. He didn't develop. I'm sure that bothers him. And there's no question that those were very talented teams, and he didn't hold up his end of the bargain. And I'm sure he still lives with that till this day. And yeah, I mean, listen, developing these quarterbacks are hard. I mean, listen, even Ohio State has had 5-star guys that have transferred out in a variety of different positions. It's tough, man. It's developing a quarterback's tough. I mean, if you look at all the 5-star quarterbacks the past 10 years, and if you pull them up on Rivals, you may not even know half of them. So I don't think it's necessarily just a Penn State thing, but
Dick Buck said, y'all can't win no big game.
That's not even a real sentence, Dick Buck, but thank you for commenting. That's not a legit sentence, but
Dick Buck. Is he an Ohio State fan?
Well, yeah, he's probably like Buck nuts, Dick Buck. It's not a complete
I mean, I don't know if he's saying
that truly wins a big game each year.
I don't know if he means it in like an insulting way. If he does, like, Dick, you're a dick. But I mean, it's true, man. Like, we don't win big games. So
no, but he just didn't. He couldn't even say it like with like true English lettering. Like it wasn't.
But who wins big games? Who wins big games?
If you speak to us in English, we will respond.
Ohio State, Indiana. But if you ask a lot of Ohio State fans up until 2 weeks ago, are you winning big games? They said no. We're 0-4 versus Michigan. And we've lost in the playoffs every single year since the Ezekiel Elliott year when they shouldn't have even made the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. Matt, is Penn State the Mecca? Penn State, is that the Mecca?
The Mecca of what?
College football.
No, they're
Who's
not
the Mecca.
Well, you got to define Mecca. What's like anything? Like people throw out all these terminologies. How do you define it?
I've said Penn State is the Mecca. I've said it several times. Brett, do you think Penn State's the Mecca?
It's such a broad statement. That I agree with
All
Matt.
right.
Like it's not like for 10 years Alabama was the Mecca. For a whole decade.
Historically, Penn State, 409 wins under one coach, Joe Paterno, built the second largest stadium in the world. We're up there with all-time wins, the atmosphere, all of that. I think that makes us the Mecca.
Well, I mean, I mean, listen, I love Penn State more than anyone. I would push back and say, like, listen, I mean, let's just
Alabama's not the Mecca, man. Not overall. What did they do in the 80s and 90s?
I said for a decade they were the Mecca.
Yeah, but look at Alabama.
I know.
Alabama beat us in a national championship game in the 80s, that goal line stand, right? They won a lot under Bear Bryant. I mean, we had one bronze statue of a coach outside the stadium. I don't know if you've ever been down to Bryant-Denny, but I've been down there. They have multiple bronze statues of multiple coaches who won national championships. So that's just like
the 90s, we were Alabama. We didn't win national titles. We were number one every single preseason.
Yeah, I mean, listen, to me, Alabama, over a longer period of time, looking at a multitude of factors, national championships, Heisman Trophy winners, Hall of Fame coaches, their fan support's great, and they're very nice fans. I went down there for a game when we played in
Alabama.
They're very very nice fans. I got invited
very nice people.
Tailgates. Very good conversation. Don't you come down for the game? We're nice, nice to have you. LSU fans also very nice as
Auburn.
well.
Auburn, because they're from Alabama. I met some of them. They were nice.
Yep. Yeah, they're cool. But no, I mean, listen, Penn State is. I would love for them to be the Mecca, but if I'm being honest, like other teams have won more, put more Heisman trophies, and won more conference championships, and have done it for a longer period of time. I can't say we're the Mecca. We're up there,
but
that's all
right.
As a fan.
By the way, can you guys hold on a second?
I got to dip out here in a few, guys.
All right. Can you guys hear this? Can you guys hear that?
I can hear you.
Did you play anything yet? I don't hear anything.
Hold on. But Matt, continue your point. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I there is a lot of there's a lot of wonderful things about Penn State's program, but I mean, Mecca is just like that's just a different level. I mean, if you want to put them on, you want to make the case for like a Mount Rushmore, top 4 or 5 programs of all time. If you're talking about success, fan support, enthusiasm, stadium, you're definitely in the top 10. You're definitely in the top 10. I'd say.
All right. But what were you saying before that?
Listen, this season is coming down to a 15-day or 30-day window in April, right? When that transfer portal opens. Like after the bowl game last year versus Ole Miss, my whole point was like, hey, listen, unless they bring in 2 all-conference caliber corners, we're losing our top 3 corners to the NFL draft. We're just not going to be able to compete for a national championship with no experienced corner. It's just too important a position. Now, we saved our season, and I'll say we saved our season in that portal window getting Harrison Kimber. Because without Harrison Kimber, we would have had no experience, and the whole structure of the defense just wouldn't have been what it was. We probably would have lost 3 games.
Harris was a lockdown corner as a sophomore. That's scary. He's going to be really good next year if he stays healthy.
Yeah. So, and it's going to be the same thing at receiver this year, guys. And we're probably also going to need one corner, right? So, like, I'm not concerned about them making the playoffs. I'm not concerned about them potentially getting a bye. I'm concerned about that transfer portal window and them hitting it from everything I've heard as hard as they're going to. And they're going, I'm telling you right now, there is a distinct plan for that window.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to have to wait until the April to see what happens with the roster. They know the few critical positions that they need to compete for a national championship. And that's another corner and at least one or two wide receivers. And when that portal window closes, we'll either be, hey, we're still number one, or we're going to eventually say shit, right? Like we needed one extra play to get over the top from someone on the outside, and we're going to know whether to get that or not. I mean, that's it. I mean, our season comes down to that window because we're 1 to 2, I think, players away for solidifying ourselves and accounting for the injuries, because we're going to get injuries this year. We got real lucky with our health last year.
The good thing is the depth that we have at corner, though, like with Davian Collins and Zion Tracy, they played really well. Like they made a big jump, and they're smaller. They're like 5'11", not super lengthy, but Zion Tracy and Davian Collins, when they were in there, they played pretty good, man. They left up a couple plays, but you can see the talent, and it's exciting to see the jump.
Yeah, and Elliott Washington too. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. The depth's there. I wouldn't be as concerned if they got another corner, but they need two receivers. And I'm not talking about one. They need two receivers, and I think they'll be there. Because thinking if you are, let's say, a top 5 spring portal receiver, biases aside, name me 3 other teams you'd want to join to get you in the league. You're going to, like, Penn State is a top 5 team with a first rounder at quarterback and 2 NFL running backs. It is prime for an all-conference MAC player or a second team Pac-12 receiver.
G5, something like that.
Yeah, to get themselves in the second or third round.
Yeah.
This is a really attractive destination if you're in that position to say, how do I raise my draft stock?
And a senior quarterback. Yeah.
And a senior quarterback. Exactly.
For sure.
It's probably the most attractive landing spot if you are a portal receiver.